Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me so much pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of India Habitat Center and Professor Benoy K Behl. Today's talk is the 21st in his monthly series, Glimpses of Culture. In 1996, Behl was commissioned by the National Museum of India to produce a photographic exhibition on Buddhist sites and art heritage of India. The exhibition was held as part of the Festival of India in Thailand that year. By then, Professor Behl was already well known as an expert on Buddhist heritage and had done considerable work on documenting the numerous rock-cut caves of Western India, as well as the monasteries of Ladakh. The commission of the National Museum started him on a very extensive and methodical journey of documenting Buddhist art, which eventually led him to be the person who has photographed the Buddhist heritage of the world in 20 countries. Professor Behl is also a filmmaker who has made over 146 deeply researched documentary films. He's an eminent photographer, Buddhist scholar, and a record-setting traveler. He's the author of some of the best-selling books on Indian art history in the world. Professor Behl has traveled across some of the most high-altitude regions of the world and has braved many mountain passes to bring us intimate glimpses of the Buddhist culture of remote regions. In today's film, he shares with us the living Buddhist culture of faraway Arunachal Pradesh. So, ladies and gentlemen, Benoy K Behl speaks to us today on Arunachal, Cradle of Buddhism. Thank you for your attention, and over to Professor Behl now.
Thank you very much, Sujata. A great pleasure to be with all of you again. My thanks to the India Habitat Center, my grateful thanks to them for yet another opportunity to share a chapter from the cultural history of this beautiful subcontinent. And my grateful thanks to Doordarshan, who have played the role of a public broadcaster so wonderfully by supporting the making of my making films on so many serious subjects. In the highly commercialized world of today, it is wonderful to have a public broadcaster who for decades has supported my work on very serious subjects. Very kind of them. Ladies and gentlemen, the path to enlightenment in the Indian philosophic traditions has mainly been a solitary exercise. It has been a meditative journey to try to discover the deep knowledge which can be found within. However, an important contribution of the Buddhist Sangha, the Buddhist tradition of the Sangha, the congregation, was that in the first millennium, vast complexes came up where hundreds of intellectuals came together to study the steps on the path towards enlightenment, the steps of knowledge, where logic was studied in great detail, where epistemology, where what is knowledge itself, studied in immense detail. And these became the earliest universities of the world, where universal knowledge was studied. These were the Nalanda University, the Vikramshila University, the Odantpuri University, the Bihar University, and right across the subcontinent. Takshila University at Bulk, and so many others. Now, when the universities of the eastern plains of India, these huge monastic complexes, when these were destroyed by the 12th century, the knowledge which was developed there, the marvelous knowledge of Buddhism, the knowledge of how we leave behind the concerns of our material world for the search of that which is important, the science of life, the science of what is important in life. This knowledge was thereafter, after the destruction of these monasteries, taken to the high mountains where it was nurtured and kept alive. And one such beautiful mountain sanctuary is Arunachal Pradesh. And it gives me great pleasure to take you there today. Sushant, I would request you to please run the film.
Over the past 31 years, I've had the joy of traveling repeatedly to many corners of this vast subcontinent that is India. It is amazing to see how landscapes, culture, food, music, dances, and even languages change every few hundred kilometers that you drive. You see the highest mountains of the world, great seas, bountiful rivers, and best of all, a people whose thoughts and heritage go back a few thousand years. Join us on an enthralling journey. I am traveling again across the whole of India to bring you spectacular India. From the 4th to the 12th centuries, the great university of Nalanda flourished in Bihar. In the 8th century, two more magnificent universities of Vikramshila and Odantpuri were established, not very far from Nalanda. Pilgrims, monks and scholars from every corner of India and from other Asian countries made long and arduous journeys to come to these splendorous centers of learning. At these universities, the austere and ethical message of the Buddha was transformed into the Vajrayana faith, which swiftly spread across the whole of northern India, the Trans-Himalayas and Tibet, Central Asia, China, and from there to Korea and Japan. The Vajra or Thunderbolt symbolizes the philosophy which was developed at the universities of Nalanda, Vikramshila and Odantpuri. It was believed that the logic of this philosophy was as clear, striking and indestructible as a thunderbolt.
गुरु पद्मसंभव का तो ऐसा एक पंडिता है, महापंडिता है वो.
It was here at these great monastic universities that the finest intellectuals of the period debated and analyzed the philosophy of the Buddha.
तो इसलिए भगवान बुद्ध जी ने उस मन को जो हमारे पास भी है वो पोटेंशियल, लेकिन हमने उस मन
The many aspects of the Buddha's wisdom and compassion were clearly understood, and these were personified in many deities. Thus was created a pantheon of deities for men to meditate upon.
Mantras are, we can say, in this time, are like a formula. Somebody, when he practices, when he visualizes himself as a deity, then he can dominate his mind in stronger level. So this is a practice of Tantra.
After eastern India, the Buddhist centers of Kashmir and the northeast played an important role in the development of Vajrayana Buddhism. Buddhist literature mentions 4 important centers of pilgrimage for devotees. Of these, Udayan and Jalandhar are in the northwest of the Indian subcontinent, and Kamarupa, present-day Assam, is the Pitha in the east of India. Guru Padmasambhava, who had studied at the Nalanda University in Bihar, is known throughout the Himalayan regions as the second Buddha. In the 8th century, the great Guru swept right across the Himalayas, including Ladakh, Kinnaur, Lahaul-Spiti, Tibet, all the way up to Arunachal Pradesh, spreading Buddhism everywhere. The holy relics of the Guru are believed to be enshrined in Hajo, here in Assam. This site is deeply revered by all Himalayan Buddhists.
In the 8th century, the Indian scholar Shanti Rakshita was invited by the king of Tibet, Tizon, and at that time they cannot establish the institution of Buddhism. So he asked the king to invite Padmasambhava, the Indian scholar, and he spread Buddhism to the Himalayan ranges and also in Tibet.
At the eastern end of his epic journey through the Himalayan regions, the great Guru Padmasambhava is believed to have brought Buddhism to Arunachal Pradesh in the 8th century. The Bhimkhar caves, where the Guru meditated, are in the remote mountains at about 14,000 feet altitude.
उनका हिस्ट्री में है कि गुरु पद्मसंभवा ने उसी गुफा में मतलब ज्ञान किया था.
There are several places that he visited, and there are marks and footprints left by the master, which are deeply revered by the people of Arunachal.
वहाँ ऐसी सूखा रोक सी पानी निकलता है, बहुत अजीब सा है, तो वो हमेशा नहीं होता है. जब पूजा करेंगे तो ऐसे अपना अपना निकल जाता है. तो इसलिए अभी काफ़ी लोगों को मालूम हो गया. पहले तो इतना लोग नहीं जाता क्योंकि वो शमशान घाट भी है, तो कोई लोग डरता भी था. लेकिन गुरु बचे तो तांत्रिक प्रैक्टिशनर का जो हेड है वो तो कहीं भी जाके बैठा था.
The Taksang Gompa or monastery is high in the mountains of Tawang district. Taksang means tiger's den. The site was hallowed by the visit of Guru Padmasambhava.
तत्संग जो है गुरुबची वहाँ था, तो गुरुबची ने देखा था आसमान से एक वाइट टाइगर जो है फ्लाइंग करके जा रहा था, उड़ के जा रहा था. तो गुरुबची को लगा अरे ये क्या है, ऐसे वाइट टाइगर ऐसे उड़ के जा रहा है, तो ये क्या है, क्या चीज़ है. तो गुरुबची ने उसको फॉलो करके वो किया, तो वो तत्संग में था. तो फिर वहाँ मेडिटेशन करके वहाँ पहुँचा, तो वो तो एक डाकिनी था, और टाइगर नहीं था. तो ऐसे करके वो होली प्लेस जो है शुरू ऐसे हुआ, इसलिए ये नाम जो है तत्संग बोल के रखा था. तत्संग मीन्स टाइगर डेन.
Arunachal Pradesh is among the few places where the original Nyingma sect of Buddhism, which was established under Guru Padmasambhava, continues till today.
जिमीथांग में तो पूरा टोटली निंगमा हमारा सेट का है. वेस्ट कमिंग में काफ़ी निंगमा का हमारा सेट का मंदिर है. लिस्ट में है, छू में है, और दिरांग साइड में, तो वो सब हमारा सेट का है. एक्चुअली सूत्रा में तो पूरा बुद्धिज़्म में एक ही बात है, एक ही प्रैक्टिस कर रहा है. लेकिन तांत्रिक में खास जो है हमारा सेक्ट में जोगछिन प्रैक्टिस जो है खास है. स्पेशलिस्ट जो है वही है, वो जो है वो प्रैक्टिस जो है दूसरा सेक्ट में नहीं होता है। योगा में भी बहुत किस्म होता है। एक जो है अंदर इनलाइटनमेंट अटेन करने के लिए, उसको ज्ञान को प्राप्त करने के लिए एक अभ्यास प्रैक्टिस, उसको बोलते हैं असली तंत्री जो है।
The period of Guru Padmasambhava is known as the first great coming of Buddhism in the Himalayan and Trans-Himalayan regions.
गुरु पद्मासंभव जी तो अभी वो हमारे आम इंसान के तरह तो शायद नहीं होंगे, वो तो उनके पास काफ़ी सिद्धि प्राप्त थे, बहुत कुछ थे, तो वो इच्छा अनुसार वो बहुत जल्दी से उसको विदिन मतलब मिनट्स में या एक क्षण में भी बहुत दूरी का रास्ता उन्होंने तय कर सकता था, ऐसा होगा। लेकिन जो भी हो, यहाँ पे 3-4 स्थान ऐसा है जिसमें गुरु पद्मासंभव स्वयं एक पेमा कथंग नाम का इन्होंने एक पुस्तक है, उसमें लिखा गया है कि उन्होंने इस जगह पर वो पधारे हैं। एक सिक्संगरोंग है जहाँ पे आपको सारोंग गोम्पा भी वहाँ पे स्थापित है। तो सिक्संगरोंग सिख तो चीता को कहते हैं, तो चीता का अलाय, तो शायद वहाँ में गुरु पद्मासंभव जी चीता के रूप धारण करके वहाँ मेडिटेशन किया था, और या कुछ वहाँ के इवल्स स्पिरिट्स ऐसा जो लोग थे उसको नष्ट किया था, ऐसा हम लोग माना जाते हैं। इसके अलावा भी कोई गुफाएं दावे करते हैं कि वहाँ पे गुरु पद्मासंभव जी आए थे और उन्होंने वहाँ देहांत किया था, ऐसा कई स्थान है।
In the distant mountains of Arunachal Pradesh, the abode of clouds, far from the clamor of the material world, the philosophy of Vajrayana Buddhism is nurtured and kept alive till today. We are at 12,780 feet altitude on the road from Bomdila to Tawang. Everywhere you see the expressions of the faith of the people.
I am at Urjiling village. I was born here. My parental house is just down below the monastery. The structure behind me is Urjiling Monastery, which was originally a Nyingma monastery, but later on it was converted into this Gelugpa monastery after it was attacked by the Dzongar Mongols. Here it is the same place, it is the same house where His Holiness the 6th Dalai Lama was born.
Attacks by Mongols wiped out the early Buddhist temples of Arunachal. And the oldest Buddhist monument which survives today is the Gorsan Stupa. It was built in the 16th century. The silent, vast majesty of this stupa awakens a deep sense of the divine. It is truly one of the great surviving stupas of India. Another of the oldest Buddhist sites in Arunachal is the La Gyala Monastery, literally meaning the place for meeting the divine. The original monastery here is believed to have been founded by Guru Padmasambhava. In the 17th century, the great Tawang Monastery, which is one of the largest in existence today, was established at a strategic point connected by ancient trade routes. Tawang remained in contact with the entire Buddhist region in the eastern Himalayas and Tibet. The monastery belongs to the Gelugpa sect, which was founded at the end of the 14th century. Till today, the monastery remains at a crossroads of culture, and its mural paintings were recently remade by Buddhist painters from Bhutan. The monastery is built along the lines of a traditional Buddhist sangram or vihara. It has a large central prayer hall and residential buildings for monks surrounding it. The Tawang Monastery has long been famous for its great library of manuscripts. This is a vast collection which includes philosophical works, almanacs, books for the guidance of monks, record books of various monasteries, and other books. Along with the monastery at Tawang, a sister establishment of nuns, an Ani Gompa, was set up on a nearby hill. In its seclusion, this nunnery preserves its gentle atmosphere and deeply religious traditions.
This is a nunnery which is locally called Anigompa. This is older than Tawang Monastery, which is 300 years old, and it accommodates at presently about 45 or more nuns are there. They stay isolated in this place, and they are very much dedicated to the Buddhist religion, their practices, and they are doing well. And till now, whoever comes from outside and the local people have so much faith in them. So whenever there is some good days, auspicious day, then people visit here. They offer some like tea and whatever. I visited here when I was very, very small, and earlier we don't have that road connectivity, so people all used to come by walking. They are very nice. Sometimes when we want to perform puja at our village and all, we used to invite them.
She said
that how one of our neighbors is a very good woman, and she had joined this nunnery, and with her religious performance, she could help the villagers so much that she got so much influenced by her friend. So she also liked to join, and finally she got the opportunity to join here. Yeah. She has no regret joining here. Instead, she feels proud, saying that even she used to pray that in the coming future, next life also, she wished that she will be a very religious woman or a man who will do something good for the society. Even though it is a very tough terrain also, they are doing so well. Until now, they have a good reputation. So I have personally more respect towards the nuns.
These prayer flags reflect the deep and simple beliefs of the people of the vast Himalayan regions. They are a constant reminder of the compassionate philosophy and heritage of Buddhism.
इस पृथ्वी को हम लोग बहुत तेज़ी से इसको बदल रहे हैं, बहुत कुछ कर रहे हैं, लेकिन ये सारा चीज़ टेम्पररी है. ये सारा चीज़ जैसे कि इल्यूजन, जबकि हम फिल्म में देखते हैं तो जैसे जब फिल्म में हम खो करके बहुत आनंद लेते हैं, लेकिन जैसे फिल्म हॉल के बाहर निकलते हैं तो फिर वो चीज़ रहते नहीं है.
The masked Cham dance is the ultimate form of meditation of the lamas. They pray and prepare themselves for many days before the dance. On the sacred ground, it is not the lamas who are to dance, but the deities themselves. By then, the lamas are to have entirely left behind their material concerns and their own personalities. They are to have become the deities. The meditating monks perceive an inner reality, far more true than the illusion of the material world around. For the eternal moment of the Cham, earthly reality is suspended, desires and suffering forgotten, as the deities dance, blessing every being.
After the approach and discourses given by Lord Buddha, Nagarjuna, the Indian scholar, used most of his energy in order to clarify the nature of phenomena. Shunyata is the ultimate position or nature of things.
जिस दिन आप सर्वज्ञता को प्राप्ति हो जाता है उसी दिन आप स्वयं बुद्धा बन गई हो, मतलब बुद्धा कोई दूसरा नहीं है। अब जो बुद्धा शाक्यमुनि, ये हमारे एक गाइड है सुप्रीम, ये हमारे एक सिंबल है। अगर बुद्धा शाक्यमुनि इस पथ पर चलते हुए इस फिलोसफी को ले करके अगर उस डेस्टिनी में अगर वो पहुंच सकते हैं तो उस पोटेंशियल हमारे पास भी है।
This is the land made sacred by Guru Padmasambhava of the Nalanda University more than 1,000 years ago. The search for the emancipation of the self continues here till today. It is the desire to rise above attachments and illusions of the material world.
As Rinpoche ji said, he spoke of how we, while we watch a film, get so completely absorbed in it, how our emotions get wrapped up in what is happening in the film. But once the film is over, we step out and it is a different world. Such is perhaps the illusory nature of the material world around us. And what we search for is true knowledge, knowledge which is lasting, knowledge which is eternal, knowledge which we can rely upon. And it was in the 4th century that Asanga and Vasubandhu developed the Yogacara school of Buddhism in the valley of Kashmir. And this developed into the fulsome development of the Vajrayana school, which Guru Padmasambhava from the Nalanda University took from the valley of Kashmir all the way across the mountains to Arunachal Pradesh in the far east. And we saw how it continues as a living culture there. In fact, I believe some of the most understandable, some of the touching experiences of the living culture come from hearing about the Anis, the female monks, and how they live in their simple solitude away from the concerns of the material world. And it is through all this that a living culture continues, a culture of leaving behind material concerns. Ladies and gentlemen, I would be happy to answer a few questions if I can. Thank you. I will ask Sujata to please read out any questions from the chat box. Thank you.
There are no questions as yet, but there are 2 comments. So I'll read those out. Maybe by then some questions will come. Daniel Inbaum has said, thank you, I enjoyed the film. Rajeshri Achyuthan saying, highly informative film on Buddhism. Krishna Burli saying, build your reality looking inwards. Sahib Saxena, thank you, Benoy. As always, it was a great exposition of Buddhist philosophy. We were truly transformed into a real world from the illusory.
The most dramatic and perhaps the most beautiful enactment of the meditative process is the Cham dance, where you see where the monks lose their personal identities by donning a mask which covers their faces, by wearing costumes which take them into another world. And they leave behind daily concerns to present before us the drama of the energies within us, the vigor with which we would face the demons of our ignorance, the wisdom which we hope to revive within us, the spirit of compassion which it is all finally all about. And perhaps the most telling thing about Indian philosophy is how all these great ideas, all these philosophic ideas are translated into terms which are understandable for the common people. And they're translated into ways which make them livable reality, which is what you see in the culture of a place like Arunachal, where you see the simple people, simple in their day-to-day lives, yet with a stillness about them, with a frankness about them, with a truthfulness about them, which is born out of a great depth of philosophic knowledge which has been handed to them.
Rajeshri Achyuthan, can you briefly explain about the influence of Buddhism in Ladakh and Sikkim, especially the masked dance being performed as a ritual?
Yes, indeed. I happen to have touched upon it a moment ago also. Yes, the Cham, the masked dance of the Lamas, is their greatest form of meditation. Before they dance, they meditate for many days. The idea is that they should, the idea is that it is the deity who should dance upon the sacred ground, not the personal individual monk. Therefore, they meditate deeply to leave behind their personal emotions, to leave out their personalities, to try to absorb themselves completely with the qualities of the deity who they will represent. And that is what we hope to see. And that is what the people gather to pray for, because it is not a performance. It is a shared exchange. It is a shared ritual between the monks and the people who gather to witness it. And what is shared is deep knowledge, which can be of the truth which is beyond, which can be of the truth which is within, which can be, as I mentioned before, of the energies which are within us, and that will help us on our path towards the final truth. Thank you.
Tanu, the Hindu school of thought believed that Lord Buddha achieved enlightenment to delude the demons that had been chasing their deities. Do you think this could be true, since they are 2 separate religions?
Tarun, these are 2 separate religions in the understanding which was told to us by our colonial rulers. The fact is, when you look at the history of ancient India, what strikes you is that every single family that we know about from the inscriptions of ancient India. And almost all the knowledge that we have of ancient India comes only from these inscriptions. Just a little from foreign travelers, but mainly from these inscriptions. So when we look at these inscriptions, we realize that in ancient India, every family that we know about had within it someone worshipping a Hindu deity, somebody worshipping a Buddhist deity, or somebody worshipping a Jaina deity. Therefore, these were all part of the same broad stream of philosophy. So seeing them as separated religions is really how the colonial rulers, when they began to study us, how they characterized this. And they were used to divided religions where they came from. So they, saw us also in that manner. The fact is that, as I said, every family had people worshipping the different deities. These were not divided religions. Thank you.
Rita Level, what has happened to the monasteries and art of the places you visited since the time of the film?
This film was not was shot not that long ago. It was shot a few years ago, but the art and the monasteries would definitely be seen continuing till today. I have no doubt about that. And in fact, it is in these secluded mountain places that a great deal of the art is continued. It is, when I think of this, I also think of Bhutan, which is a place where at the School of Religious Painting there at Thimphu, this art of Buddhist painting is so fruitfully nurtured. And it is, in fact, an exchange of culture which keeps taking place where Bhutanese artists come to places like Arunachal and paint on the walls, for instance, of the Tawang Monastery. So it is not only monasteries which continue, it is not only the art which continue, but the process, the making of the art, which is perhaps even more important. For this is the living tradition. This is the living tradition of understanding. This is the living tradition of passing on knowledge. That also would be continuing in Arunachal till today. Thank you.
Sahib Saxena, Benoy, during your search, did you come across some very different experience and lamas who were enlightened and had powers different from common human beings?
I have heard of many such Lamajis all the way across even to the Buddhist regions of Russia and Siberia and so many other places. Personally, I have not encountered such powers, but I would say that I have encountered the power which comes from peace and patience. One of the great living things that used to strike me, for instance, when I was repairing and conserving the 11th and 13th century monasteries in Ladakh. One of the things used to strike me while I was there and living with the villagers was the manner they had, the patience they had, the deep understanding which they had, the way they conducted their lives, and the clarity with which they conducted their lives, because they had that stillness. As a matter of fact, I would say that we have so many courses teaching, you have the teaching of master's degrees in business management and things like that. I wonder why people do not understand that if they were to look at if they were to look at living traditions, for instance, of Buddhism, they would get many lessons which would help them to be able to function better in the world, which would help them to not only manage the journey towards spirituality, but even to be able to manage the problems which they encounter and situations which they have to handle in other parts of their lives. So I would say that is the supernatural power, or the special power rather, not supernatural. But that is a special power which I have experienced. I've seen so many simple villagers who, by the process of being quiet, by the process of not responding unnecessarily, absorb and deal with matters with great beauty. Thank you.
May I take this opportunity to invite all of you to our next screening, which is on May 20th, 6 p.m. It's a Saturday. Now we are going deep down to the south. It's about the exceptionally beautiful temple of Meenakshi at Madurai, and the name of the film is Divine Marriage. So please mark it in your calendars, and we would so love to have you all with us.
Thank you all very much, and thank you, Sushant. You very manfully tackled the problems which were encountered in getting the screening going today. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.